Morning, all. All right. So, news of the day, preview right there in the middle, and then some more news after that. So, Nazem Kadri, and this came out from Elliot Friedman last night, may appeal the suspension he was given by the National Hockey League. Now, the way that appeals work, the first appeal goes to Gary Bettman, and then when Gary Bettman upholds the suspension, then you go to an independent arbitrator. So, with an 8-game suspension, he's already served one. Part of the question that comes into this then is, okay, so how long is this process going to take? Is it going to take so long that the suspension is just I'm just serving it anyways? So for Kadri, he wants to appeal it. He feels that that's too much. Jared Bednar as well said that he didn't understand it. So we'll see if he does appeal, and if so, when that sentence changes, or if it changes. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. This is interesting too. JT Miller and Friedman even reported he'd reached out to him, and JT Miller doesn't want to trade. There's been a lot of talk around here about all these Canucks wanting trades, and everybody wants out, nobody wants to be here. And this is after Benning stated on Friday, no Canuck players have asked for a trade. This is a team that there was a bond there in the bubble playoffs. I think it's still there now for most of them. At least I haven't seen anything to make me think it's not. So yeah, there's nobody asking for a trade. There's nobody who's stomping out. I've heard reports that there's all these fans that have canceled their season tickets, but it's Vancouver. If you cancel your season tickets, somebody else is going to snag them. It's the same as Toronto, right? Toronto fans get frustrated and say they're canceling their season tickets. There's a line around the block to take them. So yeah, again, there's a lot of smoke. I don't see any fire yet. All right. John Cooper of the Tampa Bay Lightning. He is complaining about the referees in the series against Florida. He complained after the game yesterday. There's not been a fine yet. And this is why the NHL doesn't like coaches coming out and complaining, because Craig Berube as well coming out and complaining about referees in their series. So that's 3 coaches complaining in the last, 48 hours? So it starts to become the story, and I understand why the NHL doesn't want it to be the story. It used to be. There was a time where coaches would speak out, and that was always the conversation back when I was younger, much younger. And I don't know. I honestly don't see, and maybe it's the way that I watch games. I used to do live streams during the playoffs, and people would be disappointed because I don't really react. I really don't. I don't have these big screaming moments. I don't freak out over calls that should have been made that weren't, or freak out over calls that are made that probably shouldn't be. I watch the game, and then it sometimes feels like when I'm seeing these reactions online, I'm like, I guess they saw a different game than I did. So yeah, I mean, I understand why coaches are upset. I get that people get upset about officiating in every single playoff game ever. And when I see things like this is the worst the officiating's ever been, I realize, nah, not really, because we at least have replay now. And again, back in the 80s, you'd have one referee, and there were times where you go, oh, he's calling the game. Well, we're screwed. And it's because it'd be a referee that just didn't call anything, or a referee who calls absolutely everything, or who seemed to be one-sided against one team or the other. And that was, now we have 2 referees. We do have replays. On every major penalty, there's replays. It's a completely different environment. There will always be that anger, though, from fans about the way the games are called or not called. And so that's why when people are like, why don't you talk about all the controversial calls? Because then I'd be talking about every single penalty in every single review. And it gets, it's not me. It's not a thing. I mean, there are times in reviews where I'll say, well, this call was made and I didn't understand it. Like yesterday, calling Kucherov for goalie interference when he's pushed into the goaltender. That one's bizarre to me. But there's no replay available. The referee from his angle thought it was goalie interference. And you move on. And again, that's, yeah. So it's playoffs. This is how it works. Everybody gets mad all the time. And sometimes they get mad when their team wins. They get mad when their team loses. It's always those referees. Got it out for you. And then you look at fandoms in other sports. You're like, oh, okay, so yeah, there's that complaint in almost every sport that the officials stole it from us, which is all right. So, what thievery are we going to see today? At 2:30 p.m. Eastern, which is 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And I would like to thank all the Western teams for missing the playoffs. So on a Saturday night, I got to go to bed early, and that there's nothing really super early today. So I thought, well, we'll do the preview in the morning. I was thinking about doing the preview last night, and I thought, nah, I'll do the preview in the morning because this one's the first one. It's Nashville at home against Carolina. Carolina's up 2-1, and it's your standard. If Carolina wins this, then they can close things out at home on Tuesday, and then if Nashville wins, then they've made it at least a 6-game series. I wouldn't count out Nashville. They have a lot of fight in them, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Now at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2.5 hours later, 2 o'clock Pacific, Colorado will be going for the sweep. I'm wearing St. Louis because I'm thinking, I don't think St. Louis gets swept. Maybe they do, but I think they at least get a game in this series. It's been an interesting series so far, and Colorado definitely has been the better team. But St. Louis should win a game, right? At least that should happen, I would think. We'll see. But yeah, so St. Louis, Colorado starts at 5 Eastern, then 2 hours later, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock Pacific. The Capitals at home against the Boston Bruins. So for Boston, they can win this, but it's in Washington. So my guess is Washington probably ends up winning this game. Boston's been in control for the last game and a half, and Washington's due for a really good game. But we'll see. Kevin Miller is out. Jared Tenorti is in for Boston. That is a bit of a drop-off. I don't think it's as dramatic a drop-off as some may feel that it is. And again, it's playoffs, so you're going to see injuries on the blue line. It's going to happen. As of, for instance, Tampa Bay, Sergachev may not play in the next game. Kucherov may not play in the next game either. Kucherov, of course, not being a defenseman. Aware of that. But, yeah, so we'll see how the injury situations go for all these teams. The longer you go in the playoffs, the more injuries you're going to have dealing with. So, yeah, for Boston, it's Miller out and Tenorti in. And then we have Edmonton and Winnipeg playing in Winnipeg starting at 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific. So, Winnipeg's up 2-0, and now Nick Ehlers is back. Ehlers is in the lineup. So, we will see whether or not Winnipeg can go up 3-0 or if Edmonton can fight their way back into this series. They really need to. Because if Edmonton gets wiped out by Winnipeg, it is going to be one long offseason for that team. It's going to be another year of McDavid and Draisaitl in their prime, and they're out. And so, yeah, for Edmonton. And you have to think on some level, NHL themselves would be like, man, McDavid can sell tickets. He can make the ratings go up all by himself, and he's out in the first round. So, I mean, I'm sure the NHL head offices don't really have a vested interest other than, the fact that, yeah, McDavid is a guy who would drive ratings. So, yeah, we'll see how that works out tonight and what kind of drive the Oilers have in Game 3. And there's going to be some interesting games here. And again, coming back to this discussion, which coaches are going to be mad after these games? Probably 4 of them, at least. Maybe 5 at the officials. All right, Rich Peverley's been promoted to Director of Player Personnel for the Dallas Stars, and that's nice to see. Rich Peverley was as a player was somebody I liked, whose career was cut short, and so it's nice to see him having success in the Dallas organization. And Director of Player Personnel, good for him. Again, I like to see guys that I cheered for as players becoming, high-profile people in NHL organizations after their retirement. Also, NHL player safety, about 15 minutes before I set everything up on here, has fined Shea Weber $5,000 for the cross-check on Wayne Simmons last night. So if you're waiting for suspensions, I don't think they're coming today. And again, coming out of every single game, there better be suspension for that. There better be a suspension for that. And the NHL so far, other than the Kadri incident, has said, nope, we're good. And Bennett, obviously. But yeah, so we'll see if they announce something else later on today. But for now, that's what we got. Shea Weber, $5,000 for the cross-check on Wayne Simmonds last night. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.